Welcome back to my challenge run of trying to beat Baldur's Gate 3 as Simon and Richter Belmont on Honor Mode, where I got to do a bunch of things for the first time ever, like taking on the powerful wizard Lae'zel, battling against Raphael in the House of Hope, and doing the most Belmont thing of all, fighting the great and powerful vampire Cazador. This wasn't my first time playing through Act 3, but this was my first time really playing anything other than the main quest stuff, and I had a blast. In this finale, we'll finally see if I can defeat the Absolute and save Toril, or if the Belmont lineage and the world end here. To start, someone in the comments of the last video reminded me that the legendary trident Nyrulna also has the returning property, so I want to get that to be Richter's Cross. But first, I feed this newly orphaned wayward child, help some refugees procure shelter while peacefully resolving a dispute, talk to the smith— Orin! Anyway, I explained to the actual smith that it was Orin that knocked him out, not me. I spoke to Sister Giannis to begin the quest of investigating the death of fellow Ilmaterian Father Lorgan. I got the scabby pugilist circlet from Mattis for Richter, completing his outfit at last. Confronted a Sharon who invited us to the House of Grief to discuss Shadowheart's recent change of faith. Talk with this flaming— Orin! Alright, well, then I speak with the Gur, and though Gandrel is nowhere to be seen, they enlist our help in doing what we do best, killing vampires. Then I slay a newly born mind flayer in a windmill basement, I retrieve the missing letters for the post office, I destroyed the doppelgangers under the Ilmater Church, and finally, I make my way into the circus and get the jump on a disguised Orin. Oh, she's not Orin, is she? Well, a quick reset later, and we're on to getting Richter's Cross. I immediately steal Akabi's cheese ring, I have Richter get a jackpot and sneak past all the dinos, and that's where he was rewarded with his cross. This was enough to get everyone to 12th level, where Richter took his last level of Monk, and Simon took another level of Ranger and got Snare, which I'll never use, and Steel Will for advantage against saving throws against the Frightened condition, something someone as brave as Simon would surely have. I also went ahead and took out the fake Dribbles the Clown and his doppelganger allies pretty easily, even though they got Displacer Beast and Raptor reinforcements. The Fists and their Steel Watcher at the gate wanted trouble, but luckily some old allies came and rescued me, and I followed them back to their base where Wulbren suggested I nuke the Gondians making the Steel Watchers, but I turn them down as I've got other plans. In an effort to really explore Act 3 as much as I can, and also to gain as much experience as possible, I went and intervened in this Guild vs Stonelord battle, though since both sides were criminals, I decided to take them both on. Seeing this as a perfect opportunity for Richter to test out his new cross sub-weapon, I had Simon Hunter's Mark and throw some axes to take out one enemy and heavily damage another, and then I had Richter throw his cross, which does AoE thunder damage, which is awesome, but it was also hitting Shadowheart, so I then had him close the distance with an uppercut to finish off one enemy and damage another like Simon did. I had Simon take out two more enemies with Vampire Killer, Richter stunned one enemy and finished off another, and then from there, we just cleaned up the Guild Thieves and Stonelord Thugs that were left. With the encounter done and more XP under our belts, we then spoke briefly with Detective Valeria about the doppelgangers under the church, who was dissatisfied with our lack of evidence, and then we saved this nymph from a mind flayer, which in turn got us a special invitation into Worm's Rock, getting us access to Gortash. Rather than going straight for him this time, I got stuff I want to do in the lower city first. But before heading there, I also have stuff I've got to do here for later quests, like taking Jaheira to the Harper hideout and defeating these doppelgangers to start her High Harper companion quest, which is one of the quests for Act 3 that I wanted to do. I also spoke with Raphael, telling him off as always, and Voss, since I wasn't sure yet if I was going to side with Orpheus or the Emperor. With that wrapped up, I completely ignored Gortash's coronation invitation and headed to the city. Sure hope that won't have any unforeseen consequences later. Welp, first order of business in the city, Sorceress Sundries. I'm greeted by a familiar face who lets me know that his master, Lae'zel, wants to speak to me about the Night Song. So I buy the Ring of Regen from Roland and then go and speak to him. He wants to enslave Daemalin like Ketheric did, and though I made my intentions to stop him abundantly clear, he's gracious enough to allow me the time to not only warn Aelin, but also to prepare to destroy him. He's got a bunch of elementals helping him, but we've got Aelin and also Roland, who betrayed his crazy abusive master to help us. Now, the first time I did this battle, I got annihilated by Lorroakan's return damage effect, and the next couple of attempts got squashed because Roland kept dying, and I really wanted him to survive. But finally, after those failed attempts, I got the perfect storm. I started the fight by having Astarion black hole Lorroakan and his constructs, Shadowheart brought in a Guardian of Faith and a Spirit weapon, and though the Air Myrmidon stunned Simon, Richter was able to drop it to half health, and Lorroakan pretty much wasted his turn taking out the Guardian. Astarion brought Lorroakan down to 1 hit point with a single sneak attack, Shadowheart kept everyone healthy and spawned another Guardian, Richter stunned the Air Myrmidon with a stunning strike and finished off Lorroakan with an axe, and then we whittled down the remaining elementals until we had 1. Aelin gave Loro the Bane treatment, Roland got Ramazith's tower, which is pretty cool since I remember this thing from back in Baldur's Gate 1. I took out all of Lorroakan's arcane cannons with lightning spell scrolls and sneak attacks, and then I raided the Sorceress Vault, getting Marco Heshkir, the Robe of the Weave, the Spell Scroll for Artistry of War, the Tharkiot Codex, which cursed Richter initially, but would bless him with 20 temporary hit points after every long rest after I had Shadowheart cure the curse. I got a bunch of stuff from this Trap Genie lamp, and then summoned a Quasit to take my place in there. I got the Scroll of Bestial Communion, I got 2 Scrolls of Dethrone, the Annals of Karsus, and the Sword of Zariel that I've never used, as well as a bunch of ingredients and potions and scrolls. Afterwards, I gave the Annals of Karsus to Gale, and he considered following in Karsus' footsteps, but I talked him down from his ambitions, which earned him a council with Mystra. I spiffed him up for the first time since Act 1, and he got to speak with his ex, who asked him to give her the Crown of Karsus, the source of the Elderbrain's power, once we defeat it, to which he basically said, "We'll see." Based. We rest and Vlaakith shows up, crying and complaining about Lae'zel betraying her and offering her high-level management if she returns to the fold, but Lae'zel tells her to take a hike, which is also pretty based. The Emperor and I share a heart-to-heart, and after waking up from my long rest, I head back to the city, take out a Fishman ambush for XP, finally grab the Flail of Ages for Simon, which will be his Flame Whip, the strongest whip in Castlevania 2, and I decided that it was finally time to do the most important quest of this run. It was finally time to confront Cazador. After taking out Cazador's advanced guard and taking out the werewolves and beasts guarding Cazador's basement area, I made my way down, spoke to Astarion spawns, leveled up Simon and took my 8th and final level of Ranger, which got me an ability score improvement to bump my wisdom to 17, and then I confronted Cazador in the middle of his profane ritual. Now, being that this is an incredibly tough battle that took me dozens of attempts to get going, I tried multiple different strategies, but the one that worked to the best effect was using a combination of invisibility potions and potions of speed to ambush Cazador for a ton of attacks, including Richter stunning him with Stunning Strike and Shadowheart using Divine Intervention, which will be our Grand Cross final smash for this fight since Simon and Richter don't have it yet. You can just pretend that it was Simon that did that. And I had Astarion summon a wolf with his vampire powers. I made him invisible and positioned him to free Astarion from the ritual as soon as he gets pulled in. I had Astarion bomb Cazador, and after being freed, he completed the bombing run with a black hole. That was all just in round 1. Oh, I also had Simon uppercut Cazador and beat him while he was on the ground. From there, Shart summoned her peeps and set up a Spirit Guardian. Richter beat Cazador to a pulp. Most of the ads in the fight killed themselves on Shart's Guardian of Faith or Spirit Guardian. Cazador tried to take out Astarion in one final act of spite, but instead got taken out by Astarion himself. And then we finished off the rest of the enemies. Astarion confronted the man that had ruined his life for several lifetimes, and while I convinced him not to ascend, he did gleefully enjoy brutally shanking Cazador to death, at which point he had a moment of cathartic relief and bawled his eyes out. With the evil vampire slain and the Belmont family legacy secured, the rest of Cazador's spawn, who were much too naked to include in the video, were given a chance to live their lives in peace without harming the innocents like Astarion before them, though Simon unfortunately refused to extend that same offer to the thousands of spawn who Astarion thought were too far gone. The XP from that fight pushed the rest of the party to the next level, like Simon before the fight, and Richter took a second level of Cleric and bumped Wisdom to start working on Divine Intervention, or Grand Cross. The Gur were also happy that we defeated Cazador, and though they were upset that their children couldn't be saved, they still agreed to forgive Astarion and be our allies. With quite possibly the most important quest of the run complete, I wanted to pick away at some of the main quests so that I wasn't left doing all of Act 3's main quests after finishing all of my side objectives, so I went to go stop Baldur, the Ballist serial killer responsible for a number of deaths in the city, including Father Lorgan's. Normally you have to go around and do some investigating, then you find him, and then you have to chase him around the city until a final confrontation where the climax of this game of cat and mouse reaches a head. But I ain't doing all that. I just save scum and stun him so that my entire party can jump him before he gets a chance to escape. After taking out Baldur and then the rest of his doppelgangers, basically advancing Orin's quest to the Saravok fight, so right before the fight with her, I hopped over to the Steel Foundry to progress Gortash's quest, specifically the Foundry first to save Volo, but he wasn't even there, rather still being in my camp for some reason. Since that was the case, I instead cleared out Flim Cargo and used the submersible to head to the Iron Throne underwater prison where the Gondian hostages are being held, which is what's forcing the Gondians at the Foundry to help Gortash make his Steel Watchers. Gortash, seeing that a free Gondian is as useless as a dead Gondian, decided to self-destruct the Iron Throne, so now I have 5 rounds to save like a dozen people. And yes, I wanted to save them all.
And the fucking Gondians are to blame for all of it!
I'll save you the headache of an hour and a half of failed attempts and just cut to the part where the heroes save the day. To start, I had Simon give himself Richter and Shadowheart Longstrider, then I had him cast Enhanced Leap on himself. After entering the Iron Throne proper, I had Astarion Misty Step east, bonus action dash towards a cell, and then sneak attack the Sahuagin champion, Shadowheart guiding bolted a fishman, nearly killing it, and summoned a spirit weapon. Simon went west and killed a Sahuagin. The Quasit from the lamp that somehow magically got out at some point moved to free the 2 captives closest to the submersible. Then Richter used Step of the Wind dash and headed south where he freed Thindo. Astarion blackholed some Sahuagin and killed a champion because he was netted and couldn't move. Shart freed a captive, gave Thindo Sanctuary, and then headed west. Simon freed like 6 captives. The Quasit freed a captive. Richter freed a captive. Astarion Cosmic blinked back to the center of the prison. Shar Arcane gated one of the slower fleeing Gondians. Simon finished off a Sahuagin and moved to the middle. Richter dashed all the way to Omelum and freed him. The party then helped to cover the fleeing Gondians, who I believe I freed all of. Omelum teleports back to the ship, and everyone escapes except for Richter and Astarion, who I just revived later. Proud of my accomplishments and a level higher, with Simon and Richter both having taken another level of Cleric, I hopped back over to side quest content. Specifically, I took Jaheira with me, quickly stopped by the Society of Brilliance to get the reward for saving Omelum, and then get waylaid by... Orin. Yeah, okay, anyway. Then I spoke with Ninetoes of the Guild for a lead on the Stone Lord, who she revealed was a brainwashed Minsk, back again all the way from Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. After some investigating, we find out that he and the Absolutists that are brainwashing him are at the Counting House. So I head over, but Minsk escapes with a Jaheira doppelganger, and we're ambushed by Ballists. This was a pretty tough fight even with Jaheira here, and the backup we got naturally, but eventually we prevail, get another level up where Simon and Richter again take another level of Cleric, Simon taking the Resilient Wisdom feat and Richter bumping Wisdom to 18, and we track Minsk down to a cistern, where we absolutely demolish the Ballists, the Zentarum that were working with them, Jafeka, and finally Minsk, who we knock unconscious and then befriend after waking him up. Him and Boo were 2 of my favorite characters in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, so it's really nice to see them back again, which isn't something I can say for all of the returning characters, but we'll get to that later. For now, we return to the money the Ballists stole to the bank, and then it was back to the Steel Foundry to finish off Gortash's Steel Watcher army. The fight outside the Foundry was simple enough, usual tactics and whatnot. The Steel Watchers leading into the Foundry weren't particularly tough so much as they just hit really hard, and, as luck would have it, because I freed the Gondian hostages in the Iron Throne before coming here, the Gondians were already revolting against the Banites, so joining in on the fight and aiding them to defeat their oppressors was super easy. We defeat everyone here without any casualties, with the Banites maybe still thinking that the Foundry could be salvaged at this point. For the battle at the next level down though, they seem to have thrown that idea to the wind and make sure to target the Gondians just as much as they do us. As nice as it would be to save all of the Gondians, that just wasn't happening. So I saved as many as I could and made sure none of those Gondian deleting devices went off, defeating all of the cultists and the Steel Watchers with only 3 Gondians surviving. Though we lost half of the Gondians down here, we did gain another level, making Simon and Richter now both 5th level clerics. Then it was time to take on the Titan. My first priority was taking out the Steel Watcher ads, which was fairly easy since Simon, Richter, and Astarion can drop them to self-destruct health range easily, and getting away from the blast is also easy, so whittling the encounter down to just us versus the Titan happened pretty quickly. Now, the defensive protocol made the fight a bit of a slog since I don't think I had any way to damage it, but the missile barrage was easy to dodge, so it was just a matter of navigating all the hellfire left behind and not getting killed by offense mode, which was actually pretty powerful. To try to increase my damage output here, I even used my Artistry of War scroll and both of my Dethroned scrolls since I have a habit of saving my scrolls and potions for hard fights, but never end up actually using them, which defeats the point of my spending hours collecting them for that very purpose. The scrolls definitely helped, especially Artistry of War, but in the end, what made the biggest difference was Simon using Arrows of Ilmater to prevent the Titan from regaining hit points in defensive mode, and Astarion's sneak attack damage. Shark kept getting down constantly throughout the fight, so I just had Simon and Richter both use a heal spell scroll on her to bump her back up to full health, maybe a waste in hindsight, and I had Astarion keep lobbing ICMBs at the Titan. Finally, when it was the Titan's turn to blow itself up, I had everyone drink a potion of speed and just run out of the room. That wasn't necessarily an easy fight, but I can definitely tell that my being over 12th level made this fight's difficulty more average rather than the challenge it would probably be normally. Or maybe not, I don't know, I don't have anything to compare it to. With the Titan destroyed, Xander helped us to nuke the Steel Foundry, and when Wulbren then tried to get us to betray the Gondians after everything I just did to save them, and even after the Gondians tried to bury the hatchet and work with the Iron Gnomes, not only did I, of course, side with the Gondians, but little Barkus finally stepped up and threw a coup, ousting his dear disillusioned friend Wulbren from the Iron Hand Gnomes and becoming the de facto leader of the group, where he agreed to ally both with the Gondians and with us. Good ending all around. Also, somehow, Volo thinks I saved him, so he runs all the way from my camp only to teleport right back to where he was, and his goofy ass starts talking about Saravok from BG1 and John Irenicus from BG2, which was actually pretty cool and definitely made me like BG3 Volo more. Anyway, now it's time to finish off Gortash. Unfortunately, Mazora informs us that Duke Ravengard has been executed. I think I would have gotten the chance to save him if I had gone to Gortash's inauguration. Like, I'm pretty sure he gets sent to the Iron Throne after the Gortash thing and you can save him there, but I don't know. Regardless, I'll deal with that later. Right now, I'm here to take out the Tyrant himself. I take out all of his fist goons on the first floor, and after I work my way to the top of the fortress to Gortash's private quarters, I take out as many of his shields and turrets as I can with lightning arrows before starting the fight with Enver. I took out all the wall shields I couldn't get to before the fight on the first round. I had Shart summon some ads. I had Astarion nuke the entire room with Nova Release and nearly kill Gortash with a double bonus action dagger shank. I had Simon then uppercut him right after he got up, and then I had Simon, Shart's Deva, and Shart's Spirit Weapon further jump Gortash. Gortash starts winding up, putting tyrannical curses on my people and summoning these guys that do something good for his people? I don't know. But with him already at half health and another round beginning soon, things continued to spiral downward for him. Shart summoned a Guardian of Faith, but would get locked down by this guy spamming Command Halt for like 3 rounds straight. I tried to finish off one of the Black Gauntlets with Astarion, but he missed with his final sneak attack. The Guardian of Faith scored a triple and then committed seppuku. I had Simon finish off the person Astarion failed to kill and the person that the Guardian nearly killed, and then it was just down to Gortash for the most part. I had Richter clobber him, he procced a bunch of attacks of opportunity, I had the Deva smite him, and then the Tyrant Curse one-shot Simon, but I wasn't too concerned since Astarion and Richter were both going on the same turn, so I had Astarion attack Gortash and one of his remaining allies, and then I had Richter finish said ally off and then throw a health potion on the ground to heal Simon. Immediately following that, Gortash straight up killed Richter, which kinda took me by surprise. But I literally just used the revive of Shart's Deva and brought him back instantly. Finally, I had Astarion finish off Gortash, Simon finished off the last enemy, and then Astarion got nuked by the Tyrant Curse. I imagine that fight can be very difficult under different circumstances. like with Steel Watchers there, or in the Grand Hall with tons of enemies. Both ways of doing the fight I might consider doing in future runs depending on the roleplay of the character I'm doing, but this fight as it was very fun. Not too difficult, challenging but not mind-numbingly so, and I got to wail on that clown Gortash. 2 stones down, 1 to go. After that, I go ahead and take out the rest of the fists here and free Councilwoman Floric to help the city in light of Ravengard's passing, and I take Karlach to see Gortash's corpse in a very emotional and well-acted scene, though I must admit I'm confused as to why she's so concerned with dying. Like, you'll just be taken by your god to an awesome afterlife. It blows that your time in the Prime Material realm was essentially stolen, but being dead isn't really all that bad in light of what awaits you. In any case, the last thing I want to take care of in Worm's Rock is the fight with Ansur, the undead dragon former ally of Baldur, founder of Baldur's Gate and current Mind Flayer helping us. Pretty cool plot twist that I was definitely impressed by and enjoyed a lot more than the Emperor simply being a nameless adventurer, and I was also excited for the Ansur fight as, while I've never done it, I had seen it in videos and it looked really cool and fun, especially with how powerful Ansur is, second only maybe to Raphael in all of BG3. I completed all of Baldur's trials pretty easily, except for the Torch trial, which took some doing. But that aside, after leveling up, getting remarkable recovery for Simon, and lucky for Richter, it was time to face the dragon himself. I made sure to buff myself with a bunch of spell scrolls, and then started the fight by having Deva smite Ansur, which gets my party lightning blasted, and by having Shart try to contagion him, which he's immune to. Yeah, not a great start. Well, Astarion starts off the actual offense with a solid sneak attack, Simon belts off a dozen vampire killer attacks that, while they don't trip Ansur, they do some decent damage. The Azur I summoned also smites Ansur like the Deva did. Richter uses the celestial haste from the bow I got from the Hellfire Titan, and unleashes a barrage of vampire killer attacks on Ansur. And just like that, only a round in, and Ansur is down from 600 hit points to nearly 450. The water and air elementals around may have presented an issue, but I wanted to focus on Ansur as much as possible. He flew away, but I had Astarion Misty step to him and keep up the offense. The Deva had to dash over to him, but Shart was close enough to land a Grand Cross, a 9th level flame strike that did 50 damage. I wasn't quite in axe throwing range with Simon at this point, so I just had him dash over to a point that he could make it next turn, and instead had Richter jump close to Ansur, use Bolt of Celestial Light, and throw an axe, reducing Ansur's health to around 375. The Deva was again a smidge too far away to hit Ansur, but a second Grand Cross Flame Strike from Shart at 8th level dropped Ansur to nearly 350, though the ensuing Draconic Wrath cost our Deva its life. An Astarion Sneak Attack drops Ansur to nearly 300, the Air Elemental I think heals him a bit with electricity, Simon jumped in and got Opportunity Attacks somehow, which cost him his turn, and then Richter redeems him by landing a double hit. Ansur begins charging for his Nova attack thingy, so I have Shart Arcane Gate Simon away since he was prone and likely couldn't make it on his own. I had Astarion Cosmic Blink away and sneak attack the Water Elemental, I had Richter dash away, and I had Simon finish off the Water Elemental that had followed them. Ansur did his Stormheart Nova, which KO'd everyone but Astarion, but that's okay because I just had Astarion throw down a health potion for Shart and Simon and then drink one himself. Shart then healed Richter, then Simon and Richter drank health potions, everyone's good. He attempted to take us out with his powerful lightning attacks, but we continued the assault against him, dropping him now to only 150 health. Finally, after some axes thrown and some vampire killer whips, he was down to 35 HP. He started gathering energy for Stormheart Nova, so I quick-saved here because I thought I could maybe kill him before he annihilated us, since, even though his gathering energy grants him resistance to everything, he only had 35 hit points, and after a couple of tries, it worked! Well, it did, until Unrelenting Storm activated and he regained 1 hit point instead of dying, gained 100 temporary hit points on top of that, and then started gathering energy again. I thought that I was absolutely fricked at this point, totally dangled. I thought I had bricked my save and lost the run. I just needed a way to survive one single round. And then I remembered. After raiding the Sorceress Vault, I had like 3 scrolls of Globe of Invulnerability. I had never even used the spell before, but here, it saved my life. After that, I simply tapped him once and the fight ended, defeating Ansur the dragon and reaping the rewards. At this point, almost done with all the side quest content I'd planned to do, I decided to do the last main quest fight before getting the final nether stone from Orin and fighting the final boss. That fight being the Sarevok fight. Now, Sarevok is one tough customer, which is scary considering he's also smart enough to trick all of Baldur's Gate into thinking he's someone else just by reversing his name, like Superman wearing glasses. The Tribunal Echoes were easy to dispatch, thankfully since they buffed Sarevok, but the man himself would have cleaved through my whole team like a hot knife through butter if I hadn't stocked up on a ton of health items, and his undead knights weren't slouches either. After I focused the Echoes and took them out, the fight basically became Shart and Richter fight the Knights, and Simon and Astarion fight Sarevok. Splitting the fight was all I could do to avoid getting overwhelmed, and even then, Simon and Astarion were both losing fairly badly until Richter and Shart finished off the Knights. Even 4v1, the fight literally boiled down to Astarion sneak attacking and then getting as far away as possible, Simon and Richter doing whatever they could just to land a hit and then subsequently survive the ensuing 8-attack onslaught, and Shart sharting. Luckily, by the grace of God, we were able to slowly but surely whittle down Sarevok until we defeated him with one final crack of Simon's vampire killer. Honestly, mostly thanks to Astarion's sneak attacks. After freeing Detective Valeria, it was time to finish up the last of the optional side content, the House of Grief and the House of Hope. Well, I see why they call it the House of Grief, as that's all it brought me. First, for every Volo and Jaheira and Minsk that was brought back from the old games and done excellently, there are Sarevoks and, of course prevalent to the current discussion, Viconias that were completely mishandled and rewritten to wipe away entire games worth of character development. It gave me grief to see Viconia reduced to crazy evil Sharon lady after all the work the original Ballspawn did, and it most certainly brought me grief to fight her and her 25 allies that all do like 20 damage per turn, and half of which spam Bone Chill to prevent you from healing. Without cheesing the fight, every attempt was like death by 1,000 cuts. But eventually, after coming to the conclusion that focusing the low health adds first was the more effective strategy of priority, and that I should use some AoE attack spell scrolls, I was able to kill off most of the usual suspects for Fight Ender before losing Shard and the Belmonts, at which point Astarion clutched up, locked in, and soloed the last 5-ish Sharons. I even accidentally killed Viconia mid-fight. Like, I knew she got knocked out instead of killed probably for some special reason, which I later found out was so that she could give a dying monologue to Shart, but that's okay, I don't really care what evildoers have to say anyways. Well, with the Mother Superior dead, Genevieve was able to have an honestly incredibly touching and heartwarming scene with her parents before she cut ties with Shar, causing Shar to kill her parents, but also in turn allowing Selene to save their souls. I really enjoyed this companion quest conclusion, maybe more than any other, though Astarion's is a close second, and I haven't done Lae'zel, Will, Halsin, or Minthara to completion, so grain of salt. With the House of Grief done, I convinced Hellsick to send me to the Hells, giggled to myself about the prospect of a Doomslayer run where I literally just enter the House of Hope and kill everyone, and then I start my first mission here, saving Hope. First I gotta get the Orphic Hammer to free her from the infernal chains, so I go and fight Raphael's boy toy. The first go around he summons a bunch of ads that Eldritch blast my homie off a cliff, but eventually I was able to take out the little imps he summoned and then finish him off despite his tricks like becoming ethereal and charming my party. That got Simon a level up, which bumped him up to 7th level cleric, and afterwards, I stole the Orphic Hammer and some other useful trinkets from Raphael's collection, which in turn also bumped Richter up to 7th level cleric, but Raph sent all his debtors and fiends to stop me. With an infinite source of long rests now available, it was really easy to just fight my way through all of Raphael's stands to get to Hope. Being that this was really going to be my last opportunity to use any stealth items I have, here's what I did. I gave Astarion the hammer, had him and Shart drink potions of invisibility, had her stand next to Hope so that she can teleport her to safety when she's free, had Astarion take out the first chain, had him turn invisible again and sneak to the other side, had him break the second chain, had Shadowheart then Arcane Gate Hope out, and then I got Astarion out of there. That was simultaneously really smooth and really cool that I got her out of there without having to fight any of the guards. I wanted to enjoy that victory because I knew what waited for me next was the hardest fight in the game. And I was definitely intimidated to say the least, but a Belmont never shirks their duty and never backs down in the face of evil, especially not a threat like Raphael. This ends now. I confronted Raphael, and after not even giving him the satisfaction of words, I started by doing a Nova release with Astarion to deal a ton of damage to almost everyone. Astarion Hunters marked Raphael, and then I stabbed him with Astarion's final bonus action. A Cambion did a Ray of Fire on us, and that was the last time my party was attacked. The last time Raphael's evil team of dastardly devils really did anything at all. See, in the following turn, I had Shard attempt to cast Guardian of Faith next to Raphael, but in order to cast it at the point I selected, she would have to move, which isn't that big of a deal since the game puts her in position automatically if she has the movement. The problem here is that she moved into position, began casting, and then never did. I tried to switch to the Deva to force the action through, but nothing worked. I was terrified that I'd have to fight the hardest encounter in the game a man down, but something strange happened. Every time it was an enemy's turn, they simply just passed their turn. None of the enemies were doing anything. I don't know this for sure, but my guess is that because Shart took an action that was confirmed in the game's queue but was never executed, all the NPCs keep registering it as Shart's turn, or at least that Shart was in the middle of an action, which prevented them from doing anything. I was freaking out because of how difficult I expected this fight to be, and the first time I ever face Raphael, I bust the game wide open and defeat everyone without ever really even being attacked. Since Simon and Richter aren't quite at the right level to use Divine Intervention, their Grand Cross, but Hope can actually use it twice, I just had her use Grand Cross twice in place of them. I also had Simon use up the last of his holy water, but after dwindling Raphael to the lasts of his health, he kept charming us. So I kinda regretted not making a ton of holy water before the fight using the restoration fountain to spam ceremony since it would have allowed me to attack him without targeting him, which would have been a perfect use of holy water. Regardless, after one final AoE Radiance of the Dawn from Richter, the archdevil son of a Hell-Lord, Raphael, had been exterminated like a cockroach. With everything I had planned for Act 3 done, it was time to face Orin for the last Netherstone, and then to defeat the Netherbrain. On the Gang Jump Bridge, I killed the Farslayer, which earned me passage to the Chosen of Baal and my kidnapped ally Lae'zel. Before going in, I took a rest, told Will to let his father go, chased off this devil skank, and had one last heartwarming moment with Shart where I honestly couldn't resist giving her a hug. Now facing Orin in Slayer form back from Baldur's Gate 2, and with her cultists channeling Baal's unstoppable power to her, I had Astarion wipe out most of them in the offset with Nova release, had him take a potion of speed to black hole the rest of the cultists, and from there, it was a slugfest in the purest sense of the word. I had Richter's Celestial Haste and Action Surge to go and take out Orin's Death's Head, and the rest of the party just fought Orin in the biggest smackdown, knuckle-dragging all-out brawl of the run. Even Saravok had me healing and using tactics to avoid having my team destroyed member by member, but after everything up to this point, I literally just had my team stand up and take it. I was literally just trying to kill her faster than she was killing me. After getting rid of her stacks of Unstoppable, with Shart's support, Richter and Simon's dozens of powerful attacks with their vampire killers, and Astarion's powerful attacks at the start of the fight, Richter was able to make quick work of the monstrous beast and slay the final of the Dead Three's Chosen, also acquiring all of the Netherstones. I level up unfortunately for the final time of this run, just narrowly missing 20th level as comments in Act 1 and 2 made me think might happen, and I took my final level of Cleric for Simon and Richter, 8th level at 19th level overall, just one level shy of Divine Intervention, hence why Shart and Hope using it for the Cazador and Raphael fights will have to be our de facto uses of Grand Cross. After failing my first attempt to dominate the Elder Brain, succeeding on my second, and actually succeeding on the third, the DC 99 check, making my current record for succeeding this check without any manipulation 2 for 2, the Emperor saved us when it ultimately failed, and we began the final battle of Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur unfortunately had to eat Orpheus's brains, which upset Voss, but I convinced him to ally with us anyway, and after a rousing speech amongst all my allies, which was actually really awesome to see, like it's the tangible reward for gathering allies, I began the battle at the courtyard. This battle took a while because of how many people were in combat, but after a long and hard-fought battle, we defeated all of the Absolute's cultists and mind flayers and made it to the sprint to the top of the fortress to climb onto the Netherbrain. I wasn't really feeling this, so I just had Astarion drink a haste potion and a flying potion and just skip past it all to the final confrontation. This was a battle of epic proportions. I took the opportunity here to haste most of my party and use their double actions to summon every ally I had made. I called my Owlbear all grown up, Councilwoman Florix Fists, Iron Hand Gnomes, a Gondian Steel Watcher, Dame Aelin, Zevlor and his Hell Riders, the Gur, some Harpers. I sent in a massive fire spell and dragon bombardments from Roland and Voss respectively, had healing help from Isabel and Selene herself. It was truly a final battle befitting this run, but it wasn't over yet. During the fight, a second Nautiloid appeared to destroy us before we could get to the brain, so we all hurried inside as fast as we could and left the fight to our allies. With the way open, Baldur used a concentration blast on the brain, Richter hit it with a bolt of celestial light and another arrow, the brain began destroying platforms and gave itself immunity to the prior damage types, Astarion made it in and casted a scroll of bestial communication since the brain was immune to piercing damage, Simon died in the prior battle, so I had Shart use a scroll of revivify and then arcane gate them both to the portal to the brain. I had Richter whip the brain with his vampire killer, the brain destroyed some platforms and gave itself immunity to bludgeoning damage, I had the Deva smite it for radiant damage and fear, I had Astarion fire on it with its bow and had Shart use a 7th level Flame Strike Grand Cross on it, then again with a 6th level Grand Cross, I had Simon Hunter's mark it and try to throw some axes at it, but it didn't seem to be possible for some reason, so I instead had Simon heal himself by throwing down some potions, I had Richter get off the crumbling platform with an arrow of transposition, and now I was in a pickle. The brain was immune to most of my damage types at this point, there were no platforms close to the brain for melee attacks, and there were only 2 rounds left until the auto-wipe. Then I had an idea. It was finally time to use all of my scrolls. I had Astarion use Bone Chill for necrotic damage, I had Shart use Circle of Death for more necrotic damage and Ray of Sickness for poison damage, I had Simon cast Enhanced Leap so that he could get onto the last remaining platform, and I had Richter dash for it. Last platform, final round. With the brain at less than 100 health left and only immune to necrotic and poison damage, this was it. In an all-out final burst, I had Astarion fire on it twice with his bow after using a potion of speed, as there's no better time to use the last of my hasting stuff than now. I had Simon go for a cross throw that completely whiffed, so I ultimately chose to finish with some arrows. And for Richter, the last of my team, I potion of speeded, braced, hit the brain with a 4th level fireball, missed my first arrow shot with a 95% chance to hit, and with my last attack on the last round of the final fight, I hit with my arrow and did 16 damage, the exact amount I needed to defeat the brain. Against astronomical odds, I had done it. I had defeated all of the mighty foes that stood in my way, defeated the Netherbrain itself, and saved Baldur's Gate and the world from the Mind Flayer Grand Design. Now for the bad news. Have you all ever heard of the expression, tripping at the finish line? Yeah, well, as we were all celebrating my victory, all my companions started making plans for the future. Because of Orpheus's death, Lae'zel was planning to flee Vlaakith to the astral plane, but I wanted to convince her to stay. Now, this was a pretty tough check, DC 30, and I really wanted this for my happy ending, so I dropped a quick save so that I could save scum it. Well, I failed it and tried to reload, but the dialogue was stuck. I don't know if this is punishment for my hubris for flying too close to the sun and save scumming at the end, or if this is karma for the free Raphael Fight, but no matter what I did, I couldn't get the check to execute anymore. Dialogue just froze with Lae'zel staring at me staring at Lae'zel in her undies, and Baldur side-eyeing us both. I tried exiting the game and reloading, restarting my Xbox, uninstalling and reinstalling my mods, everything I could think of short of uninstalling and reinstalling the game, and nothing worked. Which was incredibly frustrating and disappointing, as I kinda feel robbed of the ending I've been working towards for like a month, but at the very least this happened after the final boss fight. I may not be able to reload a prior save to try again thanks to single save mode, the king of screwing up my runs so far, but at least I tripped on the finish line and face-planted past it, ultimately completing the race. This run was probably my favorite run I've done so far for both YouTube and on my personal time. If you guys have any suggestions for who you want to see next in Baldur's Gate 3, let me know in the comments down below. I went ahead with Simon this time since it matched Halloween, it had lots of community support, and I also wanted to do it too, but most of the time for future videos, I'll do a poll consisting of characters I want to do and characters you guys suggest, specifically 4 options based on my D&D homebrew build slogan. 1 anime rep, 1 comic rep, 1 TV show rep, and 1 video game rep. For example, because of how much it's been asked for in the past, and because I'd love to do the run, I'm pretty sure the anime rep is going to be Jonathan Joestar, my king and my favorite JoJo, but I'd also like to do, like, Vampire Hunter D, Dragon Ball, Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, JJK, lots of different anime. For comics, I'm a Marvel man and a DC man, so I'm just as excited to do Moon Knight as I am for Batman. I don't know a lot of TV show characters, honestly, but I have some interesting ideas for movie characters, and you guys might have some TV character ideas that I might want to do, and video game character ideas are endless. From platformer icons like Mario and Sonic, to characters from games popular on the channel like Solid Snake and V, to characters from some of the best role-playing games out there like characters from Soulsborne games, or even characters from Baldur's Gate like Saravok or John Arenicus. The possibilities are pretty much endless. Alright, I'll see you guys all in the next video. Peace!